I think Caster Jhin is way better. But I'd also like to thank G-Sun for helping me workshop the script, right? As we see the first bans coming in, I feel like Taliyah, Vi ban, no surprise, coming out of T1 side, and then the Varus, Pantheon on the right side.
What I'm looking towards here in this first matchup is T1 going to continue to get a very early, solid matchup for Faker? They've really been prioritizing just any champion that works well for him, while not really taking into account the matchups as much, whereas I expect Gen.G to heavily lean towards getting chovy, something he can perform on.
Because I think while while Faker overall has been looking a lot better on the international stage, the clutch that we kind of expect from him, you heard about it on the desk, still the laning phase has been a bit suspect. So see if that priority remains in place for T1, especially on the blue side. So here in game one, and incredible signs
Fans
as
have gone
always.
so hard at this event. It's actually great.
First pick, Faker.
There we go.
Laying down the gauntlet, secures Azir for himself. It was just a few weeks ago, the Chovy brought this out and was able to find that clutch win against T1 in round 2.
Yeah, it's a high prio pick for both mid laners. Prior to the cast, Kedril was asking me and Cronicler if the Azir would get through. It gets through on first pick blue side.
And it is something that I think Gen.G most certainly saw coming. No brainer, and again, it does fall within that trend of T1. Just picking a champion for Faker, he's comfortable, and I think the Annie pick away also works the same way in that it allows Gen.G to deny that pick from T1 down the line. I wonder if the Wukong follow-up is going to be there as well. Obviously, blinding Wukong always feels rough, but we've seen that 1-2 be really, really strong. Another pick that you can go towards is the Poppy. We've seen it often compared with the Azir, either in jungle or in a bot lane because of the power of that wall slam. And Kiin, they're having an absolutely stellar tournament so far, is going to get the Gwen here.
In a unique situation where we see neither the Gwen or the Rumble banned in the first phase. An opportunity to play arguably the two strongest top laners on the patch. Now, T1 can take their time here. They don't necessarily need to immediately snap Rundle. It might not even be advisable, but Kiin, this is kind of the champion on this patch. If you want to solo carry a game, Gwen is the champ to do it.
Yeah, she just ends up taking over in team fights and also in side lanes. We have the Sejuani hover right now for Oner, and that's going to be locked in.
Saw Inspired yesterday. Has to try. I'm sorry. You're looking at me like I'm bringing up your trauma. It was a sick game yesterday. Oner now alongside the Jax as well for Doran, so clearly willing to lay down the gauntlet on the top side.
So a lot of levels to this. We have Oner picking away one of Canyon's best champions. We also have them deny the Gwen and Sejuani combo, and then they also get the Sejuani with the Jax themselves. So Sejuani Jax, extremely strong topside 2v2. There is the Wukong that we were expecting, so Gen.G very clearly opting in for a lot of proactive dive. Wouldn't be shocked if we see the Poppy banner to deny it away from Keria, while simultaneously still having, I think, pretty strong lanes, particularly early on.
Yeah, I would like to see them take away the Poppy. The first pick they are going to take away is the Bard. We've had a lot of fun Bard performances. Those signs went super hard, by the way.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Of course, Chovy, 10-3 career on the Annie. Wukong locked in, you mentioned it already. So taking away some of the counter picks for the bottom side of the map, the Bard and the Karma, I think a good read. Don't want to get too far pushed in here on the bottom side before you can really leverage the power of that Wukong Annie combo. Lucian also taken away. Interesting situation where both sides have matched in phase 1, so phase 2, red side can have a lot of value for Duro. Of course, Keria, the guy we know for the crazy counter picks, and see if Duro has anything up his sleeve to show us here in game 1.
With this draft, Gen.G, to me, probably looking for an, I want to say R4 Jhin. Pick it away from Guma. It's one of his best champions. It works really well with these type of dive compositions because it's so easy to follow up on any of the setup. Instead, looks like we're going to save Ruler's pick and pick one of the strongest supports on the patch, the Neeko, to come through it for Duro.
Yeah, Neeko, an incredible playmaker, no doubt, right? The champion that if you have to pick something blind makes sense. But now the question is, what does a counter pick AD carry look like in this meta?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm really curious to see what Guma and Keria are going to lock in now. They do value Cryo in that lane so heavily, right? Which I think one of the reasons why the Karma might also have been taken away is you can pair the Ezreal with it, right? Have a super strong pushing lane. Xayah hover now, and that will be locked in for Gumayusi. And the Rakan.
Okay.
Crowd goes crazy.
Yeah, coming out swinging, and right, it's no surprise. Keria, Guma, back-to-back. How many times have we seen this duo take over games, especially on this combo?
and I'm sorry I got to mention it, to me, the play I will always remember is going back to 2023 playoffs when T1 started their run towards Worlds.
Look.
KT was there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It was this 2v2 that started, I think, the ascent to greatness.
We saw the Jhin coming in, Mal.
That is true.
The Jhin coming in for this comp, and like you already discussed, there's so much setup for the Jhin, has amazing range on top of the dive they do have. I mean, this is such a standard T1 comp coming out of T1, it's crazy.
There's a lot of ability for Oner to go and engage. Keria has really good follow-up. Guma is one of his comfort picks. Doran is on one of his most iconic champions, has been very consistent on this Jax. Faker on Azir, really don't think we need to discuss that one further. For Gen.G though, they do have a lot of pressure in the lanes, and as mentioned, I think Gen.G is a team that, even though they have the reputation of being generally pretty low-key, when they get big laning advantage, they're a slower-paced team. They're facing off against a team that will literally fist fight for any objective that you can think of.
I just haven't heard the phrase low-key. It doesn't sound very low-key. Here in Vancouver, as we get ready for our first game, two very explosive compositions. Comfort for the side of T1, maybe a bit more of those practical lanes to talk about for the side of Gen.G. See if that pays off in the early stages of the game. Game one has been a bit of a red herring in a lot of the matchups so far, but I imagine something this story that's just not going to be the case. A lot to be taken away from momentum as well if T1 are able to find it.
Yeah, no, these are two teams that are super, super familiar with each other. The last time they faced off, yes, it was a 2-0 for Gen.G, but those games, in particular, game one, came down to an insane chovy flash shuffle into a three-man Skarner ult. So I expect team fights, even though Gen.G has a reputation to be boring, team fights are going to be explosive.
Vancouver, as we load into game one. You all know how it goes. T1, Hana, duel, set.
I think they weren't ready, but maybe for this one. Gen.G, Hana, duel, set. We got it. We're gonna train. We're gonna train. I know it's new. It's an LCK special. Not everyone has been there. We'll find out as we go. For now, though, early game.
A lot of noise. That's all I can ask for.
And ultimately, that's the fandom we love to see. However, as we get into this first game, you can hear that. And this is what I think makes T1 so terrifying. The desk predicting for them as well. It's the T1 magic. Maybe oversimplified as being clutch. But again, every stage they play on feels like a home stage. And it's something that the Gen.G players cannot let get to them in such a high-stakes match.
It was really interesting to hear from Doran in his stage interview where they were like, what's been the difference being on this T1 team? And he talked a lot just about their preparation, both in and out of game, as something he's like, oh, now I see it, right? Like now I see why and how this team has been so successful.
Looking at the early laning phases, gonna see if T1 can keep it together. I think we do, when we get to the level 6 spikes, obviously have a lot for T1 to play for. There is the Sejuani in particular. Do note that Oner has also gone for the Unsealed Spellbook, which for Sejuani's we've really generally only seen into Trundles, but the rune has just been on a tear here. Will allow Oner to join very easily with TP if he so chooses to as well, later down the line.
I love that the spell is back in particular for Keria, just because I feel like he's such a demon and he can be so creative with a lot of his spell choices that makes him an even more well-rounded threat all over the map.
Yeah, the surprise exhaust or smite when you're suddenly getting contested by the Rakan, maybe not what you expect, but
look, Rakan going in with smite goes hard.
And that it does, as apparently does Doran Jax, and of course the history between these two teams. I think important to call out, you heard it from the desk, but just a reminder of how many times these teams have played against each other. It has been such a close-fought rivalry. It is historic, essentially since the dawn of LoL eSports, just about, right? Across name changes and org changes, player changes, roster changes, Faker really the only consistent. And with the return of Ruler, that much more history across, 10, 12, 13-year rivalry.
And it really wasn't until chovy joined Gen.G that this matchup became even remotely close, right? We saw Gen.G struggle as recently as 2021. Good run, sure, close to making the World Finals, but losing to the eventual World Champion. As here we see closer, ever inching forward, but as I think the desk highlighted, if you're chovy, and you see all those wins you're able to find, would you not rather have won that World Finals last year? It's something that I think always warrants discussion. Early laning phase here, thus far, not going too crazy one way or another, as we do have both junglers. Potentially looking for a gank.
Canyon paying some attention top side, but was spotted out on a bit of vision. His Oner is just trying to keep the ball rolling on the bottom side. Quick stun, cleanse out. So nice summoner spell picked up there. Gets the heal too from Duro. So overall, pretty effective gank from essentially just Oner by himself.
Yeah, this will be able to, T1 should be able to set the wave in a spot where they'll be a little bit more comfortable. They were getting kind of pushed in by the Jhin Neeko, so now they will be able to back, and we're going to see Canyon backing after taking that topside Scuttle Crab.
For me, this mid lane matchup, something that we're going to keep a very close eye on, because I don't think we've seen domestic Chovy yet. Last year, we saw him a lot during MSI, had a couple of extremely high-stakes, high-pressure games, even in the finals, was heavily targeted, didn't end up mattering. Had an incredible tournament. I don't really think we've seen that thus far. Doran and Kiin fighting here towards top, but Kiin obviously looking for a base as the lane swap does come through here. T1 going to be pretty even with Guma being there earlier, but Duro now looking for a cancel on Doran, not letting him back for free.
Continuing to get aggressive on the top lane in the 1v1 is Guma. Now there to back up. Lane reset coming through. Duro. Guma out for blood. He knows he has to use the flash. There was no heal from earlier. The level 3 Xayah rush camp solo?
I thought Duro was dead there.
I don't think that works in solo queue. How the heck did that work in this level of play? Credit to Guma, found the angle. Duro overconfident, definitely did not anticipate him being there, and that's going to cost him pretty heavily.
Yeah, Duro was just looking to try and, again, deny Doran, try and get Kiin ahead. Didn't end up working out, and now his flash down on Neeko, that is a big summoner gone, could end up being a big difference maker when it comes to those early fights. Neeko not having the ultimate available, or the flash rather available to combine with the Pop Blossom is a big deal as Faker sees Canyon woke up, and let's be real, Canyon is Wukong pre-6. A little bit of damage would have been nice, but not even going to get that, as Faker just shrugs it off.
The goal to walk up and look menacing, it would seem. Get a bit more space for Chovy to take over to 6 before he starts dropping bears in the mid lane just to get a little bit of prio. Although, I think when we were coming into this, we're like, oh gosh, Chovy versus Faker, all-time greats. I think this early lane matchup, probably not where we're going to see that spice. I think we might have to wait another 10 or so minutes.
No, we have a Sejuani and a Wukong. Look, the Wukong is like halfway to 6. But as Doran pushes up on this bot side, this prio is actually going to give Oner free license to grab that first Drake for T1. And I actually want to talk about T1's Drake priority a bit, because last year at Worlds when these two teams faced, I thought T1 was the best at using grubs, right? And that evolved throughout that tournament. At this tournament, they've been super high prio on Drakes, and first Drake in particular. They actually broke BLG's kind of first Drake take percentage in their 3-0 stomp of BLG. So this is something that T1 have been prioritizing really heavily, and it's worked out super well.
And a lot of this goes back to Duro getting caught, because he had to give up a sums, which means that Ruler just had to stay underneath his turret, catch the wave. Because he was catching the wave, T1 actually had the ability to swap, which they didn't end up doing. Guma ended up going back to lane, but they could still only respond, which meant that there was nothing really to pressure T1 near that bot side. Kiin just had to watch Doran push in, get the Drake be taken as Chovy. Just,
let that bear go.
Getting some harass down.
Trying to get prio in the lane, no surprise. Of course, recurve bow back for Faker alongside the Amp Tome means he's not going to be able to do much to trade against that burst damage quite yet.
And we see these lane assignments coming through with not Chovy. Oh my gosh, I'm getting trolled by Neeko again. The bot lane going up into Doran, and then T1's bot lane going up against Kiin. So trying to kind of keep both of these top laners at bay. We haven't seen this as much in a lot of our swaps. Usually teams kind of match the swap, but I think with what happened earlier.
Doran putting down a lot of pressure, knowing that Neeko's only level 4 isn't too concerning, but the Jhin is level 6, Doran. Third shot, fourth, wait, okay. Doran stone cold, had to use the ward hop, but manages to make it out.
Yeah, entirety of the play, vintage Doran goes in when he probably shouldn't, goes low, doesn't even need to flash, ends up just able to dodge, Ruler not hitting that final shot, and that means that the attempted play from Gen.G gonna fizzle out for now. Gen.G has been able to build a big lead in the mid lane here, though, with Faker having to respect the pressure that has come through, as that's the real Canyon.
Canyon forced to flash away, stun landing, immediate fall coming in from Keria. Oner and Keria working together beautifully. Canyon might just got down by base damage. Faker now trying to follow, but they don't quite have enough burst.
that stun that chovy landed onto Faker to keep him out of that was huge, and kind of the only reason that Gen.G weren't, the Canyon kind of didn't die, right?
Oh, Gen.G though used a lot of cooldowns. They still want to look for the contest here. T1, are they ready?
Gen.G, Guma ready to pull the feathers back. Maybe happy to just take one grub, try to deny all three. Magic so far, good pushback! Only managing to find the clone, and now it's first blood coming through. Kiin there in the nick of time, and the needles are starting to fly. T1 packing things up, trying to get out now. Last grub, they aren't even worried about it. Keria and Oner on the way out. Guma trying to hold on, but the Voidgrubs are down, and in the end, it's 2 for Gen.G.
And Gen.G, see T1 try and contest those grubs, but T1 really underestimating how happy Gen.G was to contest that. And I think because Canyon was so low, they're like, okay, the Wukong is gone. That's one of the biggest spikes. But guess what? Gen.G ready to fight for that to the death anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that T1 had it kind of set up as well with Keria TPing in, like that was very planned from them. As we see the setup on this again, T1 and Guma, and here comes the Keria TP. Faker is coming out, and Guma does miss the ult, which also ends up being pretty important.
And I think Guma felt pressure to ult because there is a Annie right next to him. So if he gets hit by a Q, he just ends up dying. But instead, because that ult is already gone, he can't really walk up nearly as far. They don't actually have the damage to take down Canyon, and Kiin goes unchecked in this fight.
Kiin is really the demon in that fight, because I think part of the reason T1 felt good about taking that is they saw Annie ult was down. They saw Jhin ult use bot lane for the kill that didn't quite come through.
No Wukong ult.
They thought they were in a super comfortable spot, but really underestimating what Kiin can do, even without any items under his belt, with just an ulti and a choke point. But now, stun on Faker, a bit of a moment of discoordination as Faker flashes away. Not gonna get the last shot is Keria! Saves his mid laner, will not give Ruler the 4th bullet.
Still big window for Gen.G. They get Faker's flash. They get tempo on the map. Might be looking towards setting up for this Drake in 30 seconds.
And I think the scary thing here is we've seen T1 prioritize Drakes, as you mentioned, Emily, and so often it's worked out. But often Gen.G with the gold lead is a more terrifying threat, though. Kiin now locked up, cut down on the way out, and the TP's too late. chovy found a little bit of CC. Maybe he can burn down Oner, but they want to turn this one back. 3 looking for the 4 stack, but instead, chovy finds a kill in return.
Chovy's able to get the return kill, but there you see,
Stun, flash, okay!
It's probably about time to mention that Jax is one of Doran's best champions, maybe? I was gonna talk about the 1-for-1 because there you saw the power of the Jax and the Sej working together to dive. Chovy got one back, but then steps too far forward and Doran's just able to take advantage.
And chovy, of all people, should know, having played with Doran for a good amount of time on DRX, on Gen.G, don't fall for the Doran trap. Did he almost die for no reason earlier in battle? Yes. Does that matter? No! At any point, Doran can strike. Beautifully played there, and that means that the trade goes a lot better. Gen.G did still get the Drake, but the gold lead that they had built up, now gone.
That was almost 1,000 gold for the Drake, and again, starts off so positively here for the side of T1. Chovy is able to get something back, but a little overconfident. We're not going to get to see the rest of the replay because Chovy's been locked up once again. All of T1 descend upon mid lane.
This is what happens if you don't have your flash. If you are an immobile carry into Azir, there's a reason why this champion has been at the forefront of the meta for what feels like the beginning of League.
And this T1 team in particular is so aggressive with punishing mistakes like that, or not even mistakes, but just punishing sums, forcing you to make some sort of decision on the map that leaves them in an advantage. We saw these kind of minor moves when Gen.G and T1 faced each other last, again, specifically in that game 1 when T1 were in such a winning position. So yeah, they're punching back really well.
Oh, Doran, he goes in.
Needlework used. Duro on the way. Doran counters trying to get a bit of damage back, but he should just fall here. Should be an easy kill pickup. Starting to retreat now. Will finally get cut down through the ultimate. A nice side lane pick for Gen.G, and there's not really a counterpunch for T1.
Really big deal. Doran striking with overconfidence. He is his Triforce. Kiin doesn't even have a first item finished, so wants to try and push as hard as possible. Duro finds a nice punish.
Yeah, and this should set up Kiin to be able to back and buy, so he should be in a much better position in those side lanes as well.
Faker walking up.
Yep.
Not afraid to contest here, but again, it's just, yeah. The item completion, Nashor's Tooth, able to just win on these trades so effortlessly. Yeah, there's some Merc treads there for chovy, but it's not for Faker. That's for the rest of the team.
Chovy also going for a much more utility-based build, so Phase Rush obviously makes sense into the amount of short-range threats that are there on T1. And then going for the Rod of Ages, those builds have felt pretty lackluster. I do think this is one of the few compositions where it actually makes sense, right? Because if you look at what Gen.G have, both in jungle and in top, and even in support, they have so much damage available that going for a more utility-based build, I think makes some sense. But it does mean that the rest of the team will need to do some more heavy lifting, as Chovy is going to be, with the Malignants now finished, going towards a more utility-based role.
That's where the setup in these team fights is going to be huge, right? And that's also where I'm looking at Chovy, because that survivability does allow him to just continuously rotate and land stuns to set up for this Gwen, the Wukong, the Neeko, the Jhin.
Kiin, forced to flash. Exhaust use as well. Again, power the Summoner Spellbook. Oner packing an extra combat summon instead of the smite for that fight on the top side. But I think it's important that we highlight top lane, because it feels like as much as Faker right now on the Azir will eventually be that scaling threat, both these guys feel like facilitators for the main actors of this game that have been Kiin and Doran. These are two players with storied history of their own, of course, sometimes pushed out of the spotlight because you're looking at Faker and Chovy, but obviously a ton of history, a ton of games played against each other in and out of these respective lineups, and somewhere where we have to look in game one, because this is where the carry threats really were placed in the draft.
Not only the carry threats, but again, it's going to be who is able to set up in a side lane for their team to be able to cross map and be able to set the map in a way where it forces the other team to respond to them.
And as we saw that graphic, a lot of that will be for Kiin, obviously, in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Ever since he joined KT and then Gen.G afterwards, actually having a lot more domestic success than he did before. Winning his first title on this organization as well. And we might have a Herald fight on our hands. Looking at the summoners available, it's only Kiin that doesn't have his. Everyone else has theirs, and T1 looking for a quick pick-off onto Chovy here.
T1 seemingly willing to concede this Herald to get this pick on side lane. Chovy maybe feels like he's secure because he knows that objective would normally be the priority, but he's going to find out very quickly that he's not alone. How is he going to try to outplay this one? Baron to lock up Faker, try to mitigate some of that damage, but there's just nowhere you could go! The Annie does not have the tools to escape! Does the three-man dive, works out for T1.
And that's first turret to T1, as Gen.G will be able to take down this Herald, as that should give them feats, yeah. But it's T1 getting that bot tier 1. Doran might be in some trouble.
Doran locked up here, Counter-Strike, mitigating some of that damage. They don't really have enough to push further, but now it's the TP topside from Faker. He has Flash, he has ulti. Probably just needs to glide out. Canyon. Ooh.
And we've seen the exact play happen with Faker about 1 million times. It's never actually a pick. Always turns into reinforcements arriving. This time it's Faker TPing in. I think Gen.G still going to be happy with getting that summoner, but that bot side play, Chovy not expecting that many resources being paid towards him as Kiin.
Faker, push back onto Kiin. Keria on the way in. Exhaust coming into Rakan. The charm, the layered CC, nearly flawless. Kiin trying to heal back. Kiin trying to make the difference. Doesn't quite have it. Faker and Keria find the kill.
We also had Ruler on the way. I think he was trying to look for an ult angle. Didn't quite find it though.
Yeah, and on the bot side, we see that Doran is going to kind of harass Canyon.
Contest this is Ruler. Quick ulti in the mid lane, gets the cleanse. Now can wander down to the Drake, but T1 taking their time. Likely to concede this. Don't want to give up a Drake for free, but really don't have the resources on the map. And in the meantime, it is still Keria and Faker pushing down on the top side.
And what we see here is textbook T1, right? Just overloading on these sides. First is the pick onto Chovy, then it's a topside play, baiting and TP. It looks like Doran is overextending. He's fine anyway. Might have to be careful here as we do have Duro on the deep flank.
Of course, Doran trying to clear the bear out before anything else happens, but there's still a Herald in the back pocket of Canyon if they do want to pressure somewhere else on the map. Finally, Kiin is going to be able to catch that wave on the top side, working towards that second item, but T1 have been pretty relentless playing for these side lane picks. A similar story for Gen.G, and it's been pretty even trades across the map. Yes, there's an extra Drake now, as well as an extra grub for the side of Gen.G, but T1 holding on to that 1.5k gold lead.
Yeah, and so much of it is actually in Faker in this mid lane, right? He has about 800 gold, which isn't a massive gold lead, but it's a really solid one, especially for something like the Azir, which is just going to scale so well into the late game. But yeah, all of these side lanes are now opened up. So we'll see how Gen.G and T1 end up setting up the map, especially with a Jax and a Gwen.
Both these teams obviously having a lot of teamfight power available as well. For T1, as long as they can avoid getting flanked, I think their front to back is so hard to cut through. You have Jax that can create space, you have an Azir. The engage obviously is amazing. If either Chovy or Kiin, though, even Canyon, ever finds their angle, and really it's often T1 that we see go for like these, what, 3-4 pronged engages. I think that's what Gen.G is going to have to look towards, which is why it's very important. They don't lose mid lane turret, and they hold on control of the vision. If the vision gets fully choked out, I don't think Gen.G can just play a straight up front to back.
Multiple members of the team now descending on the bottom side of the map, looking for that vision, trying to wrest this control away from T1, hoping to find a pick as Keria. Now realizes he's spot Duro. Quick bit of lockup, trying to protect Faker. Faker needs to get it out of there. Keria going to use the ulti to try and hold on. Duro trying to find it. Chovy looking for a bit of fall, but Faker still standing for now. Oner ready to body block the shots. Faker still living, but in comes Kiin. Gen.G on the bottom side have found a man out of place, and they're looking to find quick kills. Making it look effortless, but it's Doran now. Herald used it, might just have to be the escape path. Doran locked up and shut down. The fourth shot finds his mark, and out goes Canyon.
And there's a reason why Gen.G says, we know how to deal with T1. I've seen that play run by T1 a million times. Faker is quote-unquote overextended as Canyon does miss the turret.
We need to revoke Canyon's driver's license after that one. But yeah, that was so well set up, and that's where...
Okay, that must have been on purpose.
Yeah. Ruler, on purpose. Yeah, that was on purpose.
That's where you really see the power of this team composition when they are able to set it up. Kiin coming in on the backside of this. It all starts with Duro and getting on to Faker.
And the crucial thing is that they actually get the hard CC down on Faker before he gets to shuffle out, because T1, again, is very ready for this play. The only downside is Doran can't actually join the fight until their main damage dealers are either taken out of the fight or already dead.
And you can see how, if Gen.G get the jump, as you mentioned before, with the Annie and Wukong, or in this case with the Neeko, how easy it is for them to play out the rest of the fight, because T1 used so many of their resources defensively that when Kiin shows up, he's just kind of allowed to run free.
Oh, we're looking at Adacon.
Potentially a big gamble. 2.5 items completed for Guma, relatively strong, but tough now to get into this fight. And now that Gen.G have control over the space, Keria wandering forward. Walking in, Faker. Doran looking for the flank. Multi-pronged fights, you mentioned it before. Looks like we might just flip it. 3.9k instead. Gen.G collapsing on the flanker, but now it's T1 going all in onto Kiin. Kiin, Duro looking for the encounter gauge. A nice interrupt to stop him from getting into the midst of the entire lineup. Keria barely holding on live, and they get the Adacon! Guma steals it! That's Faker now on the retreat. Gen.G hungry for blood. They need to get kills back. They can't afford to give this away for free. Kiin will get Faker, but at the cost of the Adacon.
Should be able to get Doran in this turret as well. Gen.G trying to snowball as much as they can.
Taking another kill. But there's not much to transition it to. A top lane tower maybe, but that's infuriating for Gen.G. They got the kills, they just couldn't get the objective.
Yeah, Oner says, thanks for the leash, guys. I'm just gonna come in and take this one. And really, as with so many things, Doran here on the flank, Keria going in onto Kiin, kind of forcing him out. And then, yeah.
It's the lack of flash for Duro. He can't get on top. The fact that Guma does this on Xayah is way more insane than we have seen it happen before with the Varus, obviously, just using his feather pullback. But we'll see what this means for Dragon, because if this leads to soul point for Gen.G, because I do think, as we can see, they have tempo towards the river here. Still not be the end of the world for them, but the Adacon, the value of those flowers mean this game still dead even.
T1 though still behind on the setup as you highlighted. That's what it might mean, conceding the Drake unless they want to risk the fight walking into Fog of War. Faker would much prefer to have that setup first. You can see Oner not afraid to eat a bit of damage as Canyon goes forward, but Oner, quick interrupt on the Arctic Assault, may just give his life. The burst from Gen.G is too much.
As soon as you land one part of CC in this composition, the rest can just immediately delete you from the map if you are isolated, right? And we saw it right there. That puts Gen.G now on soul point, and this is a mountain soul, which would be absolutely massive for them.
And normally you see a Jhin, you're like, I don't know about the tank damage, but with both a Wukong, blood letters on Chovy, as well as a Gwen, even Oner, the tankiest member, I think, on the Rift, is just going to go down in seconds.
Kiin playing on the edge there a little bit, testing Doran, see if he can find a bit more of an advantage as Duro waits behind him.
He took his Krugs. That's not okay. Those are his.
You got to earn the title, Krug Lord. You got to keep. He has to keep fighting for him. You can't fight for him once and keep the title. Kiin wants it for himself.
A little disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I will also say that while I really love the spellbook Sejuani, I think one of the downsides, as you can see there, is normally he would have procced Aftershock. He'd be a bit tankier. You are very squishy. The upside is, in the fights to come, as we keep our eye on Keria, Ruler pushed back! Caught out, T1 ready to go through, in the Ruler spot, essentially!
It's the Ruler moment!
Yeah, a lot of poignant history there as Faker swoops in to find Ruler on an immobile carry.
And this is the best part of the matchup for us, as fans, as spectators, as enthusiasts, but it's so hard because for him it's another death mid lane, but for us it's the pattern, the history. How many times have we seen that play be a decider as T1 trying to wrest control of the mid lane? Gen.G not going to let it go easily, however, as a secret minion will just be a clone this time around.
I gotta say, if Ruler didn't flash, I actually don't think that play is a big of a deal because there's no objective on the map. There isn't really a lot of opportunity for T1 to try and get anything out of this kill.
One sneaky minion.
Ooh. Duro gets the cancel. But because he flashed, it means that any subsequent play from both Doran and Faker is going to be way more oppressive. So I do think this is the type of composition we have a lot of threats. So just gunning for Ruler might not be the be-all, end-all for T1. But it is, I think, a very costly investment into, let's be real, even if you flash there, you end up dying. You have to flash out of the initial shuffle or just accept your fate, which he did not do, is now looking for a pick onto Doran, but reinforcements are always on the way.
Gen.G walking forward with confidence, knowing how much burst damage they can lay down if needed. Just T1 forced to respond. It's only Faker providing them a pressure point on the top side of the map. 30 seconds till Baron. We heard it from the analyst desk, the T1 Baron circus may be an angle, but Gen.G not a team who you would expect to fall for it, although we said that in semifinals last year, and T1 still managed to get away with a surprise Baron, so still need to be on their toes.
Their Baron damage is also insane this game. Looking at both Faker, Gumayusi, as well as Doran, so Gen.G need to be very careful, very deliberate with this.
Yeah, and you see both teams setting up their side lanes before that Baron. That top wave was pushed out. Chovy just responded to it. And then we have both top laners in the bot side for now.
But no TPs
Yep.
for the side of Gen.G. No flash on their AD carry, although no flash for Guma either. So difficult for Gen.G to play the entire map. Kiin may end up being late to the play if T1 do want to force this. Not a bad situation for T1 at all, despite, you know, the 3K gold deficit and Gen.G being at sole point.
Keria's just gonna get stunned up, go out. And yeah, if they keep Doran on this bot side, it's actually a great pressure setup for T1 because they can kind of dance around this Baron.
Spotted on bot side jungle though, gives Canyon a lot of leeway to just walk in, contest some of this vision. Some of the deep ward around Drake from earlier is paying off.
When highlight item finishes, Gumayusi has his Infinity Edge done. Faker approaching third item. 2 items basically done across the board here. Ruler getting close to his IE as well. It's going to be a big spike for him, but obviously as long as that flash isn't available, he needs to be very careful about how far he walks up. As we have now a stalemate. And Gen.G, because they have Soul Point, they could also just trade Soul for Nash. I think that's a great trade. I think getting Mountain Soul is so insanely powerful when you have the ability to just dive into the enemy backline with reckless abandon.
Especially against this composition too, right? Because this team really wants these kind of longer, sustained front-to-back team fights. Mountain Soul helps Gen.G's composition deal with that so much better.
Definitely a strong point. Ruler tries to find a route. T1 looking to get aggressive as Keria manages to catch out Chovy. Quick 1-2 punch. Chovy flashing. Gets the bear down. Sprinting as fast as Little Egg should go, but it's Oner to finish the job. Now Kiin looking to follow up. Duro looking to find a 3-man knockup. And in goes to Gwen trying to snip away through the T1 mid laner. Keria catching, trying to defend. It's just not enough. They're too powerful. Doran though looking to take down Ruler. He knows he has no flash. He wants desperately to finish the job. They're too forward. The leap strike. Duro can't find the route. It's a mess across the fight, but it looks like Kiin should just be able to chase this one down. Doran taking his time, ward over the wall, quick hop to safety. Multiple members lost on both sides. 2 down for the side of Gen.G, 3 down for the side of T1. Guma needs to make the difference. 3 items on this carry, but it's Duro and Canyon on the chase. Feathers go up, the pullback, he can't find the angle, and down goes Guma.
And Chovy survives for just a second longer, meaning that Duro can find a beautiful counter engage, which sets up for Kiin. Allows Gen.G to still find these big fight wins. Look at the Drake timer. T1 tried to go for the big fight there, just wanting to blow up Chovy, who doesn't have a defensive item, but it ended up failing and backfiring.
And now instead of being able to leverage that Baron, right? Gen.G, well, are we contesting? Oh, okay, they are going for the Baron, which is
sometimes
smart.
You need the circus. Gen.G though appear to be ready for this one as Faker's just waiting over the wall. This is the power of Azir.
Let's go.
This mid laner can shred through the objective. T1, I think they believe that they're unspotted, but Duro's on the way in, so they'll know they're in trouble now.
Oh, Canyon's here.
Willing to flip it, willing to bet it. Canyon stepping up, T1 now retreating. Is this just going to be a massive leash? Gen.G.
They found Faker.
No reason to take the risk, and now it's Faker who has been caught out, wants to slide back, but there's Ruler waiting, looking for the finish, the kill. Faker gonna go down. T1 over eager, too comfortable in the idea that Gen.G would be fully committed to that Drake.
And this is why Gen.G have been T1's nightmare domestically. They know this team so well. They read the play like a book. Go towards the Dragon. Know that T1 is going to look for a heavy play towards Nash. End up getting him off. T1 might just try again, but this time I don't think they're going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, without the Azir damage, this Baron looks a lot different.
Keria has Smite and is waiting around the pit.
Oh.
He's 3K, he's wandering in. He's looking for the Miracle Steal. Junglers are hating some of their spellbook right now, but Gen.G have the discipline. They don't knock it low, they don't risk the 50-50, they zone off Keria, and they get the soul for themselves.
Yeah, that's Mountain Soul to Gen.G. That's absolutely huge. I will reiterate, I love seeing Keria with unsealed spellbook. It's so unhinged. You know he's looking for that Smite steal.
And when do you need to be ready for the Rakan to come check you?
Exactly.
Because normally you'd put one person there and be happy. Luckily, as Mal mentioned before, Gen.G are ready for this kind of play. Didn't feel like they were here, but in the extended fight, it does look good in this priceless moment of the game.
As chovy ends up getting caught here, very nice pick, but then this Freeman ultimate plus the damage from Kiin means that even though Faker can delay for a little bit longer, Canyon gets on the back line, and if it is on the front to back, it's a messy fight. Gen.G can run amok.
Yeah, and Guma was not able to get into that, as well as when Doran tried to jump onto Ruler, right? You saw them kind of all pivot onto him, and yeah, this is looking like a really nice setup for Gen.G now. They should be able to clear out vision.
Ooh, that's an aura exhaust right there.
Once normal
Walk it off, Canyon. Wait, it worked!
Out briefly. No, Mao, it did not work.
He fell for it.
A little bit of bait.
Oh.
Now the retreat will be fine. Body block there. Makes it look easy as the ulti is going to be used by Oner. Major tool now missing.
Are you saying you didn't feel the aura from that?
I do. Obviously, I feel the aura, but I'm assuming, I assume that they have a different relationship.
Well, clearly,
you know?
Oner thought it did as well, because he went for the ult on the clone. Which, as far as Sejuani angles go, trying to play into both Wukong and Neeko clone, not a great time.
Definitely not. And the thing I want to call back to is that previous fight. You brought it up. Guma wasn't in position. This is the big thing. We favored T1 in an extended fight, but that hinges on one of these two carries able to freely auto-attack. Neither were able to do that in the previous fight. And with Mountain Soul, the Wukong sustain in these scrappy exchanges, it can be really tricky for T1 if they don't get that front to back.
It's also, if you kill chovy, that alone is not enough. If you kill Ruler, that alone is not enough. This isn't the type of comp where you can take out one member and then play off that. You need to actually be able to get good fight angles and make sure that both Faker and Guma can do damage in these extended fights.
Another thing to point out, Kiin is going to have Azonias as well, so that just makes his flanks so much more powerful when Gen.G are able to set up these team fights how they want.
Definitely can be tricky. Bit of poke coming out from the side of Gen.G. There's a Seekers for Doran trying to match what he can, as well as the QSS for Gumayusi to stop some of that upfront CC coming from Duro or from chovy. But Gen.G, 4K gold lead, 5K gold lead, Soul. This is their comfort position. This is a team that knows how to choke teams out, regardless of if it's T1 or anyone else. And T1 need to find a way to break this.
Or you know T1 are going to go for a Hail Mary in one way or another. There is the arm guard for Doran. There's QSS even here for Guma in case that somehow chovy finds him with the Annie. But Gen.G, I don't think they feel too pressured. They're probably just going to keep setting up these vision traps and keep fishing for picks like this.
And the CC. Doran backs away. Just continue to scout out with the vision as well, and this is where the Neeko is especially frustrating, when the enemy team already has position on the objective and they can just use that Neeko clone as a bit of extra deep vision to fish for these angles. And now there's a bear also wandering into the jungle just to make sure that T1 really have nowhere that is comfortable, as Keria will be forced to back off.
Also, look at how Gen.G have set the map, right? We have these side lanes getting pushed in, where T1 have to respond to that with sending Faker and Doran to go catch them.
Clinical League of Legends. Looking for those incremental advantages. Next time they get a setup, it might be a TP. It might be a flash forced out of a single member, and that might be all it takes for Gen.G to have the confidence to pull the trigger on the objective. But T1, not a team that's afraid to sack a wave here or there to force, to take a risk.
Also, Duro, Frozen Heart now finished into the amount of auto attackers on the enemy team. Actually going to get a crazy amount of value from that item. Doran, Faker, Guma, all going to be a little annoyed by that item existing. And I think Gen.G is going to keep playing it slow and steady. Catch the side waves, push it out, and then look for someone on T1 to walk in. Now, I don't think T1 are actually going to think that Gen.G is really doing it, because Gen.G aren't necessarily as crazy when it comes to these Barons, which is why we've seen the game kind of stall out. I think Gen.G keep waiting for someone on T1 to walk in or make a positioning error, but I think they're going to have to do more. They're going to have to actually start up this Nash. As I say that, though, Doran taking a lot of poke. That might be the starting sign.
Taking another chunk. Doesn't have any natural sustain in the kit outside of when he's in combat from the Sundered Sky, excuse me, as he's closer now to the full hourglass. Yep, and Gen.G going to start the objective. Feel like they have good position. TP coming in from Doran, and Gen.G looks like they're going to immediately back off. Instead, happy to play for the pick. And again, it's just death by 1,000 cuts. They got what they came for. T1 thought it was Baron, but they were just happy with the TP.
Started again. TP used. All sums basically available here. Gen.G.
chovy, CC onto Doran, instant combo. There's nothing he can do about it, but he goes golden. He buys an extra moment, and it's Guma and Faker on the backline for now, uncontested, trying to fire back. But the objective in the sights of Gen.G, keeping the pressure there.
Keria has smite.
That he does. As does Oner, and they're trying to lock him out of the pit. Canyon, nice backstep with the clone. The chunks onto both clones, massive, but not the real champions. Gen.G poking.
Using the mountain shield.
Yeah.
Just waiting for it to regen.
Chovy on the flank. Ruler trying to find the angle. Bit of CC down on the Faker. The flash forward. He goes golden. Can they try to turn this one back? A multi-man push into the waiting arms of Guma. Guma free firing, but Chovy flashes forward. Finds the CC. Quick QSS. Ulti out. The fight is so damn close. Ruler, one more bullet into the ulti. And it might just be curtains for T1 because Gen.G, what a fight. The quadra for Ruler.
Ruler quadra kill cleans up a fight that was so close. At Baron, they'll be able to take down this mid-tier 2, and I think they might try to push to end here.
Lore accurate Jhin right there. Ruler with the quadra. Look at that damage. This man was one of the weak spots on this team coming into MSI. He was the one, together with Duro, that was most criticized, but his Jhin performance this tournament has been insane.
Incredible stuff from Gen.G. They got the advantage. They gave T1 no quarter, no angle, no way of attack back into that one as they take game 1 with confidence.
A fantastic setup from Gen.G, from a team that knows this T1 team so well, right? They set up their side waves. They have the Mountain Soul. They're like, we know you need to come into us to get this Baron and then end up getting the pick they need.
And somewhat of a reversal in mid lane, where it was actually, I think, Faker did a really good job in the early game, both solid in lane, but when it comes to the impact, even though it felt like a lot of fights were chovy getting caught, he still was able to deliver that CC that the rest of his team followed up on.
And in the end, the wins, all that matters, and Gen.G are the ones to take it. Let's send it over to the analyst desk to break down game 1.
Thank you very much. We always have the question if it will be more reminiscent of the domestic or the international matchup between T1 and Gen.G. And this time in game 1, it goes firmly in Gen.G's favor. That feeling you have that they know that they're not going to be caught off guard, that they can see a little bit what T1's game plan is all along.
Yeah.